Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? Chantel Chand, lots to get into in this episode, but of course, we are going to be remembering Carroll Davis, and the guys will be talking about just the impact in the culture of Raider Nation in the silver and black. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. Lots to get to.
What's happening? Q Myers here, and well, the Raiders are tasked with trying to figure things out and get things turned around in the second half of the season. 10 games left to go. Can they do it? We'll definitely discuss it today.
Good morning, Raider Nation. Professor Kennedy here. Look, it's a somber day in Raider Nation. Miss Carroll Davis has passed away. She was a true matriarch. I'll speak to some personal involvement, but we'll also break down the Raiders as they get ready for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Raider Nation, it's time. This is the Raiders Squad. Everything Las Vegas Raiders every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Death Star in the desert. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Commitment to excellence starts here. The Raiders Squad Show starts now.
Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? Remember, if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels. You'll see in the description below the ways that you can connect with us. And we just want to say we appreciate you rocking with the show. We appreciate you letting Locked On Raiders, the show that Q does solo, being the first listen of the day. Or maybe this is your first or second listen of the day with the Raider Squad show. So we do appreciate you. Remember, you can also find us on the audio side if you're watching this on YouTube. So wherever you find your shows and podcasts, we're there too. And we do appreciate you. If you could leave a rate and review, give us a 5-star, because I say this all the time. Link and Q are on the show, and that's why the Raider Squad show is one of the best squad shows. Before we get into what's on the docket today, I got to definitely mention our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. And lots to get into in the final segment, Raider Nation. Q and Linc are going to be taking some of your questions. We're going to be reading some of your comments. So please drop them in the chat right now, and we will get to them in the final segment. We're also going to be giving our second half season predictions, going through the rest of the schedule, and we'll let you know if maybe the Raiders could possibly, at best, maybe end up at 500. We'll see what the guys say. And we're also going to talk about the locker room culture. Of course, Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, it's a new era. We talked about it at the beginning of the season, but we're going to dive deep into it a little bit later as well. But first, we got to start off with paying a tribute, obviously, to Carroll Davis, who recently passed away. And of course, our hearts and thoughts and prayers go out to Mark Davis and the Davis family. Guys, Carroll Davis, everyone kind of says it. If Al Davis was kind of the heart of the Raiders, she was definitely the soul of the Raiders. And, Linc, we'll go to you first. Just your thoughts on Carroll Davis and how you think she'll be remembered.
Oh, man, truly a remarkable woman in every sense of the word. I've had the pleasure of, meeting her when I first came over to the Raiders in 96. She greeted me with the warmest and strongest hug I've ever had from an elderly woman at the time. And Mrs. Davis, passed away, as we know, over the weekend in 93. And look, from everything that I talked with Al and Mark about the family, she was the glue. She was the glue. She was the glue that personified what it meant to be to be a Raider, to be a true Raider. And Al Davis, carried that on. And obviously Mark is trying to carry it on. But what a remarkable woman, very remarkable woman. And she is definitely going to be missed. She was a main cog that the Raider Nation even got created because of her strength and what she showed for the unity of the organization and the fan base.
The first lady of Raider Nation. I only got an opportunity to meet her once, and that was when the Raiders opened up Allegiant Stadium to the fans back in 2021. 2020, remember, was the COVID year, so no fans were in the building. But that Monday Night Football game against the Baltimore Ravens, 2021, I'll never forget it. We did all our local radio shows from the stadium that day leading into the game, and then Mark Davis wheeled Carroll Davis out there on the landing, not the Coors Light landing, but outside, and really greeted when they opened up the doors, kind of had a nice little speech and welcomed all the fans into the stadium, and it was awesome. And just to see her there with a big smile and see how proud Mark was there with her as well. Like I said, I didn't have very many interactions with her, but seeing that moment right there, I realized how important she was to the Raiders family, to Raider Nation, and just 93 years old. She'll obviously never be forgotten. And when I saw the release that she had passed, I mean, this is something that happened on Friday, and I didn't find out about it until Sunday. But Lincoln could attest to this. When Mike Taylor sends something out, that's important.
No
Mike
doubt.
Taylor doesn't always send everything out, but when he sends an email out, you're paying attention to it.
There's no doubt. You know, one of the other stories that I remember is that, you know, it was always often known that Al Davis would know his players through and through, families and everything else. Carroll mimicked that. I mean, there are so many times getting on the plane. We used to have a couple ways that we boarded the plane. You go through the front naturally, and then you also go through the rear. Players would. And I remember Carroll and Mr. Davis used to sit in the same spot, first class, far side of the plane. And every time you walked in, she would ask, and I'm not exaggerating, she would ask by name, Lincoln, how's your wife? How's your kids? How's everybody? And go down the list. And I'm just like, doing well, Mrs. Davis. They're doing great. They're doing great. Ready to go. She's like, let's go get them. Let's go beat these guys. Absolutely. But she was a firecracker, and she is definitely going to be missed. A big loss to Raider Nation.
Now, obviously, you know, the impact of Carroll Davis, the impact of Al Davis, it's not like any other franchise in the NFL. No. And that's another part of this as well, because just as much as Al Davis meant to this franchise, this organization, Carroll Davis meant the exact same. Anytime they would come up on the screen during games, you knew that was important. And they've always just been a part of it. They've always just been a part of this entire legacy that they've built. And no other franchise, no other team has a legacy like the Davis family. And I wanted to dive into that a little bit, because sometimes with, you know, everything that's going on, that gets lost. And there's such a rich history that the Raiders have and that the Davis family have. Just your guys' thoughts on the impact that they've left on football.
I mean, it's just they did it their way, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I've always known, is that they do things their way, and that's what has attracted me to the Raiders from the jump. Was, you know, we always used to say, especially in Oakland, you know, we're cut a little different. We're from a different breed, right? And so that's just what it is, and that's what always kind of put a smile on my face when I thought about the Raiders. Is that, you know, it wasn't about, hey, we're going to get in line and do what everyone wants us to do. We're going to do things our way. We're going to be productive, and we're going to go win. Right. And there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to get it done. I can always, you know, appreciate that. And especially, you know, looking back at all the glory years of the Raiders and, you know, obviously I didn't get to see all of it, you know, as there's been a lot of many lean years since they had a ton of success, but just seeing all the stories of guys that came from other organizations that may have been ran out of there and considered, oh, this guy's a bust, this guy's not going to really get it done, and then all of a sudden able to get with the Raiders and turn things around, like Jim Plunkett, you know, Linc. I mean, being in the ATL, right, and then all of a sudden, hey, this is your spot. This is where you're actually, you know, going to go and thrive. But for Al Davis and the Davis family to be able to find, you know, a player and say, hey, no, you be you, just go out here and ball and be, you know, be who you are. I always thought that was something that was pretty cool.
I only had the privilege of playing for two owners, and it was like night and day. The five Smiths that ran the Atlanta Falcons before Arthur Blank bought them, and then the Davis family with the Raiders. And one thing I knew from being a young kid, and not even before I became a Raider, was Al Davis wanted to do things his way. And he didn't care about the rest of the NFL. I mean, he was the one who really transformed, who made Jerry Jones and a lot of these current owners who they are because of what he did. It would not have happened if the Raiders did not do what they did. If the league wasn't out against Raiders and the Raider Nation for what they were doing, moving to stadiums, moving to cities, you know, before Al really did it, you didn't really hear about it. Every now and then you might have a flash, but Al did it. And then the thing is that he moved from Oakland to Los Angeles back to Oakland. And then now in Vegas after his death, Mark was able to make that happen. But the Raiders have always been Mavericks, always wanted to do what's best by their organization and didn't give a damn what anybody else in the NFL or anybody around the NFL thought. They were going to do what they wanted to do. And I appreciate that. I respected that, because that to me is a true business owner. If you own a business, you should have the control of what and where, how you do things. And that's what stood out to me, especially about the Davis family.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the Raider way, right?
Absolutely.
Like you just don't give a damn about what anybody else says, and you just do what you got to do. And another thing about the Raider family and the Davis family is they always brought on players that no other team would want to bring on, and they weren't afraid to do that and give guys chances. And I always loved that. I thought that was a real aspect of the Davis family. You know, one thing that I want to mention, and this is kind of interesting because there's been so much talk this season just about the Davis family and their legacy and what they've left behind. But I think it's pretty fair to say that, you know, all the talk about Mark should sell the team and all that, like the Raiders are not the Raiders without the Davis family.
True story.
Right. Yeah.
And so for me, as you know, someone that's grown up watching and loving the Raiders my whole life, I don't think you could ever say the Raiders could be the Raiders without the Davis family. So that whole narrative, I think, needs to go. And hopefully they'll definitely see some success in Vegas. And obviously Carroll Davis, as you mentioned, Q, with that great story. This is a family that has always wanted to achieve success, and hopefully the Raiders can get back to their prominent success as they had in the past, because Carroll Davis was there for all of those great years.
The funny thing, real quick, Chantel, let me jump in, is that, when you need to talk about all those, Mark Davis needs to sell this, that. Mark Davis has done fantastic on the business side of things. Like, let's make no mistake about it. He's done a lot of great things on the business side of the organization. Obviously, winning is what matters to us and what matters to fans. And that's what he's attempted to do. He's tried to hire the right people to be put in place and realize that, hey, I know what I don't know. I understand, that I need to have football people in place. And so he's put a lot of different trust in a lot of people that he considers football people. And I say that in air quotes, and they just haven't got the job done. But it's always funny when I hear people saying, Mark Davis needs to sell. He needs to do this. He's doing everything that you'd want an owner to do. He has no problem investing money in the organization. Oh, if I got to pay this guy extra money to come in, cool, no problem. Example, like how much money Chip Kelly's making, right? He brought Pete Carroll in. He tried to give John Gruden the long contract extension. He tried to go and go, when they zig, he tried to zag by bringing in Josh McDaniels. Like, he has tried to uncover every damn stone and get this organization back where it needs to be. But it's also something to be said about the people just not getting their jobs done, right? Like Lincoln says all the time, coaches coach, players play. Well, coaches need to do their job too. They need to draft the right type players. They need to bring in the right players into the organization. Mark's not trying to be a one-man band. He's not trying to be Al, where he's like, I could do it all myself and figure it all out. He's trying to put the right people in place, which I respect him for that. It just hasn't worked out yet.
As a business owner, you can only imagine trying to transform an entity like a professional franchise into a champion. And you look at all the teams who haven't had success, all the organizations who haven't had success. The Raiders are one of the more storied sports franchises in sports history, American sports history. So they're synonymous with the Lakers, the Dodgers, the Yankees, all that, Cowboys. You're all talked about in the same. But as an owner, I couldn't imagine, the amount of people that you have to interact with in order to put a winning product on the field. You talk about the administrators, the coaches, the assistant coaches, the players, the trainers, all this stuff that has to go in that you imagine to being an owner. And it's not a given, because there are coaches, there are ownerships, there are programs that have been able to catch lightning in a bottle. Kansas City, for example, to get Andy Reid, who had turned around, drafted Patrick Mahomes. Now look at their story, Hall of Fame career of franchise for that franchise. And it's hard. It's hard to win. It's hard to win when you talk about it being in professional sports. So, for all those who want to just jam and say, oh, you need to sell the team. Sell the team to who? I mean, look at the Broncos. Look at after the family, Walmart family bought them. Look how long it took them to turn things around. How many coaching changes they went through. And I say that to say this. We're all hopeful that the Raiders can somehow turn this thing around and become a winning product again. We are all hopeful. No one has a winning formula for how to do it. We just have to let the chips fall in the places that they are, and see how that comes out and wish for the best. That's all we can do as fans right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and Q, I love what you said as well, because it's like Mark has really, really tried to hire the right people. And he's not one of those owners, and I'll say it, like Jerry Jones is very, very invested in the team, and he's in there. Like, he's making all the decisions. Yeah. It's drama. Mark doesn't do that. Mark is letting everyone that he hires do their job. And sometimes they're not doing their job. And that's just the big part of it. But Mark Davis has really tried to make this franchise successful, even before they moved to Vegas during the Jack Del Rio era, which I thought was actually a pretty good era, considering the fact of the players that they got, and there was a playoff appearance. So, all those naysayers saying for Mark to sell the team, it's not going to be the Raiders without the Davis family. And I think right now Raider Nation, you just have to give it a little bit of time. And with that being said, guys, the Raiders did actually make a move this morning. We'll get to that in the next segment. So Raider Nation, keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're listening or watching the Raider Squad Show. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on this action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including Cali, Texas, and Georgia. And the thing that's great about PrizePicks as well that I actually love is they actually give you a bunch of free bonus bets sometimes. So whenever you deposit money, you might get like $300 in bonus bets, $200 in bonus bets, and they're actually always giving you offers. You just got to hit the promo tab to see those offers. And PrizePicks does this more than any other fantasy app or any other betting app. So that's the reason why I like using PrizePicks. Sometimes you get to bet for free and win some money for free. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've heard them all before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. When it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little bit of extra support. And that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast-acting doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. If prescribed, your treatment ships directly, secretly to your door. Visit rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNFL so they know we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. Welcome back, Raider Nation. Remember, if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels. You'll see on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube, or even in the description below, the ways that you can connect with us. And we do appreciate you rocking out with us on this Monday morning. So Q actually brought this news up before we started off air. We got to tell you some of the off air stuff that happens sometimes. But Tyler Lockett has signed with the Raiders, and this kind of gives a little bit of foreshadowing of what might happen, guys. But this is a guy, Tyler Lockett, that knows Pete Carroll very well, and also has the chemistry with Geno Smith that was built during the time that they were both in Seattle. Q, your thoughts on them bringing in Tyler Lockett, and what does this actually mean? I mentioned the foreshadowing.
Yeah, I mean, when you see Tyler Lockett come in and he does have that relationship with Pete Carroll, and it's kind of someone I expected the Raiders to sign a long time ago when he was released from Seattle. Instead, he ended up going to Tennessee. But as soon as he asked for his release in Tennessee, I thought that, okay, the destination for him was going to be with the Raiders and linking back up with Pete Carroll. But to me, the bigger picture is that probably means that Jacoby Myers is going to get dealt any day now ahead of the November 4th trade deadline. I feel like he's a guy that would fill that same kind of a role that Jacoby plays in. So I think that that's kind of the easy transition to go from Jacoby to Tyler. They said that they weren't going to be willing to trade Jacoby unless they felt really comfortable with the draft capital that they get back in return. So, of course, we'll pay attention. I don't want to, just say it's a done deal until we actually find out about it. But it just kind of seems like if you're trying to connect the dots, that it only makes all the sense in the world that Tyler Lockett's in, Jacoby Myers is on his way out.
Yeah, the only sense that it makes to me, Q and Chantel, is the fact that it's the personal relationship Pete Carroll has with players.
Yep.
that go a long way of him trying to build this program in Las Vegas. But look, I'm of the mindset, and correct me if I'm wrong, Q. I mean, you've obviously seen a lot more teams play recently than I have. Other teams. Tyler Lockett's not a number one receiver. He's not a number one.
No.
He's a compliment.
He's not even a number two, in my opinion. I think
he's a compliment. Yeah. See, that's my point. And so, I understand why you're having to deal. You've got a disgruntled player that you can't come to contract sense with, and you probably want it rather than just letting him go out of this last year of this contract and get nothing for him. You're probably going to trade him. That's business 101. I get all that, but it's just that you add another piece to where you already have a diluted situation in that wide receiver room because you don't have a true standout.
Right.
Oh, you can have plenty of complementary receivers, but who's the standout? We need a good, strong possession receiver that we can rely on third down, 4 and 5 that we can go to. I was watching the Cowboys game and how the relationship that they have with their receivers, they go to CeeDee Lamb. They go to Pickett. They go to those guys when they know they need a big first down. You talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and their receivers and all the prominent receivers around the league. Every team that I could think of that I watched yesterday and over the past weekend has the number one. The Raiders don't have a number one. They don't have that rely. And unless you're going to go for our injured tight end, we're still waiting for it to come back. So, I mean, it's a work in progress to me. So I get it. I'm not trying to throw shade on the signing. Hopefully it works out. I just don't know in what way does it help.
The only way that it can make any kind of sense to benefit the Raiders, in my opinion, is if, in fact, what Pete Carroll said last week heading into the bye is true, that Brock is coming back, Jacoby's coming back, and maybe the Lockett signing means that Besh gets less targets or Thornton gets reps. If they're going to get less reps, and that's the three out there that are going to be your main targets, Jacoby, Brock, and Tyler Lockett, maybe then that makes sense because then he could play that complementary role that is who he really is. But then you're taking away snaps from the younger guys who I think that they want to continue to try to develop. So it's one of those dynamics. That's why I say I don't want to just say that Jacoby's gone. It just, to me, it feels like that's kind of the writing on the wall. But obviously it'll be a wait and see progress in a situation until we see actually how it all shakes out.
Yeah, and I'm also curious if they do move Jacoby Myers, what they're going to get for him in terms of a draft pick, because I think that's really important as well. But at the same time, bringing in a guy like Tyler Lockett, obviously he knows Pete Carroll really well. Right. So, there is that relationship. But at the same time, I don't think it really moves the needle for the Raiders. Like, this is kind of a lateral move. If anything, it's worse than a lateral move. To be honest with you.
He's not as good as Jacoby Myers.
No, not at all.
No, I agree.
Not Jacoby Myers at all. Straight up.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's like, are you going to give the young guys a little bit more of a shot in terms of him being a veteran and being that veteran presence? That's good for the young guys, but he's not a better player than Jacoby Myers at this point. So what's happening to the wide receiver room when you bring in a guy like Tyler Lockett and let go of Jacoby Myers? And I think the question for Raider fans will be, how much faith do you have in the wide receiver room once Jacoby goes? Because he is the best receiver that they have, right, Q?
Yeah, there's no doubt. And not only that, he's a hell of a leader. I keep saying that and reiterating that. And I don't think all the fans actually understand what I mean by that. But for a guy, and Lincoln knows how this situation plays out. He's been there, done that. For a guy that wants a contract extension and did not get a contract extension, for a guy that went to the organization and said, I want to trade since you're not going to pay me, and they said no, and instead of taking his ball and complaining and holding out and throwing a fit and being a distraction to the locker room, said, okay, no problem. Let me get to work. I got my brothers here with me. He even reiterated to us in the locker room last week, hey, do you still want to trade? Yeah, but I got my brothers here that I love, and I'm going to go out there and play hard for them, right? I'm going to go out there and ball out, and I'm going to help even teach the young guys what to do. Even if you see in that Kansas City debacle, you see him on the sideline chopping it up with the younger wide receivers. Hey, this is how you do this, how you do that. I see it after practice all the time. You know what I mean? Like, so for him to still go out there and play that leadership role, even though he's not happy with his own current situation, is something that you don't always see from NFL players. You just don't, because they're worried about the end all be all, which is their contract situation and their situation. Instead, he's like, hey, I got my contract right now. I'll worry about that later. I'm not going to keep going to the organization and saying, get me out of here, get me out of here. I said it once. They said no. Okay, cool. We'll deal with it later whenever it happens. So that's what he's doing. And I think there's something to be said about that.
For me, Jacoby Myers, I think the situation has been a classic football. The fact is that you have a young man who's been getting progressively better since he's been in a Raider uniform, a converted quarterback to wide receiver. And you saw what he did in New England, and we saw what he was able to do at times as complimenting Devontae Adams here with the Raiders. But at the same point, he's gotten progressively better. Now, I know, Raider Nation, he has not taken that step over the top. I get it. Right. But much to we were just talking about Tyler Lockett and his relationship with Pete Carroll. Yes, he knows Pete Carroll, but he's never been under a Chip Kelly offense. Right. So we're talking about, even though Geno Smith knows him, how are you going to invest this new receiver into this offense with his current capabilities, being older and all the other stuff? And that's why I think it was really, the situation with Jacoby was mishandled in many ways, because if they could have found a way to make it work, here is a receiver who's already established himself as a receiver and can grow into this offense and be more productive if allowed. Now, we've seen flashes of it. We haven't seen consistency, but we saw flashes of it. So with that being said, if we're going to part ways with him, we're really starting over again. And this goes back to my original point that I've been saying all year. We can't keep starting over. You can't keep starting over with new coaches and new players and expect to get anywhere, because it just doesn't happen overnight. You don't walk onto the field and be like, oh, there's my new number one. Let me go to him all the time. Right. No, it doesn't work like that. You see what I'm saying? And then when teams try to take your number one away by double coverage, bracketing, and doing all the other stuff, you've got to be even more creative and inventive and finding ways to move the ball. Because this offense is not consistent enough right now, because this offense hasn't been consistent throughout the season, we're still left holding whatever we're holding in our hands, hoping that we can grip on and maybe get a win or get a collective offense. I don't know how it happens overnight. That's why I said this whole Jacoby Meyer things has just been really handled not well, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that is really interesting, and this kind of bothers me, but I feel like they're kind of like the Seattle Seahawks. Like there's so many players that used to play for the Seahawks. I like the Jamal Adams edition. Gino hearing
that made sense.
Yes,
Jamal Adams made sense. That made sense to me in many ways, especially with Patrick Graham's defense. Sorry,
no, that's okay. Go ahead. Anytime you guys want to cut me off, that's fine because you guys have the best thoughts here. But also, like when they brought in Gino, before the season, I said that kind of made sense, right? But like this move to get Tyler Lockett, it doesn't. To me, I understand why they're doing it, but it doesn't make them any better. Unless you're going to get a great draft pick for a guy like Jacoby Myers. So hopefully, that's something that happens for the Raiders. In terms of, Linc, you kind of mentioned it. You talked about how you got to stick with these coaches. And we talked a little bit about the culture on the last episode. When you're coming off a bye week and you have a losing record, how is the room still supposed to stay together in that moment? Q, you talked about it. You said like they're, everyone's still really positive, but like, when does that start to shift if they don't start to win?
I mean, they'll start to question, is this, is our leadership correct? Are we really doing the things that we need to do to get it done? But I can tell you for a matter of fact that the locker room is still as of right now, still together. I had Landon Robertson in the studio on my radio show for an hour long on Friday, and he was fantastic. And he said, man, most of the people that are talking about how our locker room is fractured and aren't getting along, he's like, I've never seen in the locker room, Q. Like, he's like, I've never seen him in our locker room, so I don't know where they would get that from. He said, these meetings that we apparently had, that Max held a player-only meeting, I wasn't at that meeting. I'm at all the meetings. He's like, we ain't had none of those things. He's like, some of these guys are typing stuff up on the internet or coming up with stuff on the podcast that aren't even real, and so he just kind of went off on that little bit of a not rant, but just, to let it be known that, people think that they know, but they don't. And he said, yeah, is there times that we get at it? He said him and Jamal Adams get at it all the time, but they're also like, they're best friends with each other. And he even used his wife as an example. He said, Q, look, I'm married. I've been married 8 years. We get at each other's necks all the time, but that's my best friend. Like that's what it's a relationship business. We're in a relationship. And so he's like, our locker room is straight. He's like, obviously we want to win. Obviously we're not in a place where, we thought we'd be. We're sitting there at 2-5, but he said, there's a lot of season left. Right. And he referenced his time back in Miami when they were like 1-7 and they finished off the season really strong, like on a 7-game, 8-game winning streak, whatever the case may be. They lost, I think, the final game. They missed the playoffs, but they had a lot of momentum there in Miami. He's like, it's not anything that any of us want to do, but we can still turn things around. We actually have more games left to be played than we have played so far. So, I mean, there's still a lot of positivity in that locker room. It's the reason I tell you that. But obviously, if they continue to lose and they have, more streaks of, 3-4 games, or they get some more blowouts like we saw against Kansas City or Washington or Indy, then there's going to be some, some concern, and there's going to be some folks questioning each other around there. But they've got a lot of alpha dogs in that locker room. They got a lot of good leadership, and as of right now, they're all still together.
Personal feelings aside, every player in that locker room is questioning his future with the Raiders. I'm just going to tell you, especially with this record.
Yep.
Personal feelings aside, you can enjoy going to work in some capacity, but in the back of your mind, because you don't come from losing programs, nobody likes to lose. Mm-hmm. You're not going to just sit on the sidelines and just take these poundings and these ass whoopings and just go home with a smile. Yeah, everything's fine. No, trust me, there were times at the bye when the season was lost, I was thinking about where I'm going to win a break at. Where am I going on vacation? That was me. And I'm probably one of the most positive people in the locker room. I go out to war every day with these guys, but the facts are facts. We are in a performance-based evaluation business. That's what we do. We evaluate performances. So when you talk about who's on the hot seat, damn near everybody's got to be on the hot seat. But I'm cautious to really put that out there, the message out there, because I know there has to be a level of stability to where you can build and found the solid foundation to where you can build a winner. However, you still have to produce. You cannot have these high-priced guys and coaches just sitting and doing their thing, and you're not winning football games, because we are in a business where you have to win games. Nobody wants to go see a loser. No. Nobody's going to come to Allegiant if they can't win games. Nobody's going to want to buy Raider personnel if they can't win games. That's bad business. All right. So, I know the Raider Nation is probably one of the most faithful fan bases that are out there because of how all the long time that they've gone, the drought that they've gone. They want to see it turn around. and again, I'm on the fence, Raider Nation, because I can't honestly say that, oh man, this guy needs to go, this guy needs to go, and then come back and say, well, they really need to keep these guys because we try to have to build a foundation. So I mean, that's the complex issue, Chantel and Q, when it comes to it. You know, we're evaluating performances right now. The performances aren't getting it done. And you could be as positive as you want in that locker room. You could walk in with a big old smile on your face. You can go out there and practice hard. But hey, facts are facts. If you're not winning football games, you're probably not going to be in this team much longer. I don't care if you're a coach or a player. It's just that simple.
And you said it right there, Link. You don't care if it's a coach or a player. Are the coaches also on the hot seat? Because we talked about the turnaround. So no, I mean that's serious right there. They definitely are on the hot seat. But who's on the hot seat more, Chip Kelly or Pete Carroll?
I would say Chip Kelly.
That would be my guess. You know, I feel like there's always gonna be, you know, like levels to it. There's gonna be some changes that'll happen below the head coach before it's the head coach. And I think that the hire of Chip Kelly, a lot of expectations were very high when he was hired, just because we know how creative he could be offensively. And so something that the Raiders haven't had in a very long time is unpredictable play calling, right? And so a lot of times we could all sit on the couch, or we could, wherever we're watching the game from, and say, oh, this is about to happen, this is about to happen, and call it pretty much play by play. So I thought with Chip Kelly, it was going to be a lot different. He was going to be a lot more creative. He was going to put these players in a position to succeed. And unfortunately, we haven't seen this offense take off. I think they're averaging about 14 points per game right now, which is down from what they were averaging last year, 18. And the ultimate goal is to get to around 24 points per game. And it just hasn't passed the smell test. And none of it looks right. None of it has seemed right. It just, one reason to the other. And I know Brock Bowers being out is a big deal. Jacoby being out is a big deal. But sometimes you got to find a way to overcome that situation, and your play calling has a lot to do with it. And I just think that it has been underwhelming so far, especially when you go out and get a guy like Asher Genty at number 6 overall. And I think all of us feel like he's probably underutilized right now. So there's a lot of questions that I think Chip Kelly has to answer himself.
You know, I watched the Jets come back and win their game yesterday and get their first win. So congratulations to Aaron Glenn and the Jets. And I mean, they did it in a very creative way. A halfback option pass for a touchdown. I mean, who would have thought about it? That? I say that to say this: any given Sunday, anybody can be beat. I did not expect Miami to put an ass whooping like they did on Atlanta as they did. You see what I'm saying? Didn't expect it, but it happens because you have the players, you have the personnel. And I've always thought of coaching, the true premium coaching is to figure out a system that best glorifies the players that you have, the people that you have at your disposal. I understand Brock Bowers being down is a big loss. I get it. Trust me. I understand that Colton Miller going down is a big loss. I get it. Trust me. But there are things that you have to think outside the box, if you want to use that phrase, and I hate it. But if you have to be creative in the sense where you have to do something different, because it's what you're doing right now is not working. And that's why I said 2 weeks ago, man, you need to wash all this crap. You need to get back to the basics. And I don't care if you go to I formation or whatever. If you're going to run 12 for personnel, just do it something different. I mean, I watched, games where they had offensive linemen, subbing as tight ends just to add, the impact to the edge to be able to keep the blockers out on Monday Night Football last night, going up against, Micah Parsons and that defense for the Green Bay Packers. So all that being said, you just have to be creative. You have to do something to have a spark. They have another chance against Jacksonville this weekend. But the big thing about Jacksonville's got a very fierce pass rush. You better protect Geno Smith. They've got a defense that can be very stingy. You better protect Geno Smith, or he's not going to make it through the rest of the season. So they've got to find a way to get him more patient and even more constructive in the huddle, to where he's coming out and doing using plays to his advantage and making plays and moving the ball. This offense has been totally inept for a while, and they were embarrassed the last time they were out against Kansas City.
Yeah, and I do want to mention, though, I think the loss of Brock Bowers has also kind of been an issue for the Raiders in terms of blocking, right, for the run game, because he's such a great blocker as well. So that's something that's been missed. But as for the Raiders and what they need to do for their next game, as they're going to be playing Jacksonville, we're actually going to be taking a look at the rest of the schedule, and Link and Q are going to be telling you their predictions for the rest of the season. I see Q not excited. Link and Q are not excited for this. Okay, but we're going to see if the Raiders can possibly maybe be at 500 near the end of the season. That would be a dream. But listen, there's 10 games left. So the guys are going to go through those games, and we're going to see where the Raiders may end up now that we know what type of team that they are. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raiders Squad Show. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between login screens and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you pay is the price that you see. The reason why I like Gametime is they have these flash sales. If you wait till the day of, tickets may drop by like 70%, and you can sometimes get lower bowl tickets for a very good price. And the best part is there's no extra added fees. As you know, for some other ticketing apps, they add like over like $200 once you're at the checkout. So Gametime does not do that, and that's why the price you see is the price that you pay. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Gametime app today. All right, Raider Nation, thanks so much for rocking out with us. Remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels. And I've been waiting to do this, guys, after the bye week, because Linc was telling me, Linc, you told me after 4 weeks of the season, you're going to know exactly what this team is like. And now
I do.
Yeah. It doesn't sound that great. Yeah, exactly.
And I do.
So now we're going to go through the schedule because there's 10 games left. And the Raiders, they're 2-5. They're at the bottom of the AFC West. And I think you could even argue, and let's keep it real, that you could argue that they're one of the worst teams in the league, based off what we've seen.
Right.
So not to be too negative, but let's start off this weekend on Sunday against Jacksonville. This is actually a game I think they could win, guys. I don't know if I'm crazy. What are you guys thinking?
I think Jacksonville's a really good team they're not really getting a lot of credit for how good they are. And what I mean by they're good, I think their defense that creates a lot of turnovers is something that's kind of slept on. I think they're second in the league, only behind Denver when it comes to creating turnovers. So that's going to be a big issue for a team that turns the ball over a lot, right? So that's my big concern about this game. If the Raiders are going to win it, and I do believe that they can win, if they're going to win it, they have to make sure that they don't turn the ball over, because that's going to be the X factor for Jacksonville. They know how to create turnovers. One of their linebackers, Devin Lloyd, has like 4 interceptions on the season alone.
Yeah.
Right. The Raiders don't even have 4 interceptions as a team. So, I mean, it's just those guys, they're very opportunistic when they're looking for the ball. So that's something that the Raiders are going to have to be aware of. I'm really concerned about this game, to be honest with you, especially because it's a Sunday and then they got a Broncos game on a short week in Denver. That, to me, is a recipe for a disaster the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to take the Raiders in this one to beat Jacksonville, but I'll tell you what, it's not a very confident like the Raiders are going to win this game. I just think that they can win this game, if that makes sense.
Okay, I've got a question. Miss Ward, Professor Ward, Chantel, what's a 500 record in a 17-game season?
10 games left.
Yes.
I know. Okay, let's go there. Okay.
Maybe go 500 the rest of the way.
Yeah. Oh boy, that's wishful thinking. I'm holding up the schedule right now. Right. I've got my schedule in my hand. The moment we got this assignment, I started looking down for where we are right now, the product that I've seen in the first 6-7 weeks of football, and looking down at this schedule. Ooh, that's a tough feeling. Now, I firmly believe parity is in the league. I firmly believe anybody can be beaten on any given Sunday. But I do firmly believe there are times where the Raiders have to play damn near perfect football. That's minus the turnovers, minus the miscues, be able to move the ball, be able to score touchdowns rather than relying on field goals. I mean, these are all wishful thoughts that I put in my Easter basket. I've been hoping to get and crack open and have it happen every year that I come into the season. So to answer the short answer to the question is I hope the Raiders win every game going out. The product that we've seen where we are, where is it likely? It's going to be a tough task. Yeah, and I'm hoping that they come. Look, I thought that when the Raiders found that they had Kansas City right before the bye, they would go out and they would play like their hair was on fire and that they had no care in the world, that there was no tomorrow. This is the last game of the season. We saw the product that was out there. We saw what happened. It was very disappointing through and through for players, coaches, fans, everything. But going forward, and when you look at this schedule, the remainder of this schedule, I agree with you, Chantel. I do believe the Raiders are probably one of the worst teams in the league. I think they're better than Tennessee. I think they're better than Cleveland. Then after that, it's a hard stretch to see who they might be better than, because they lost their opportunity with Chicago and we lost their opportunity other places. So with that being said, much to Q's point, I agree with Jacksonville is a darn good team. I think they are a good team on that's on the rise, and they've shown some things. you have to play damn near perfect football. And I'm going to say that I want the Raiders to win because I think after this bye, we're going to see a different team. We're going to see something. I'm optimistic that there's going to be something different that creates a spark that channels a win in Allegiant Stadium on Sunday against the Jaguars.
Okay, so Q, you took the W against Jacksonville, and Link, are you taking the W as well? I'm taking note of this time.
I know. I see. I bet you are.
I'll take the W. I'll take the W.
Okay. What about you, Link? Are you taking the L or the W?
Oh my gosh, this is hard, difficult. I wasn't expecting this on Monday morning. You know what? I'm optimistic. Raiders, through and through. I'm bleeding silver and black. Raiders going to win.
All right, cool. I'm gonna go with the W as well. I think they can run the ball against Jacksonville. That's the thing. That might be Jacksonville's maybe.
We don't run the ball at all.
I'm about to say,
well, they gotta run the ball now. They gotta do something different.
They commit to it, yeah. I think that they're right. They can run the ball, but I haven't seen them committed to running the ball yet. That's
exactly.
They have to keep it simple and just run the ball. That's what I think. That's my analysis.
Man.
All right. So and then the week after, guys, they're at the Broncos. I think this is
man, the Broncos haven't lost at home going into last season, and they looked awfully tough yesterday.
Yeah, their defense is exactly what the Patrick Graham-led defense is supposed to look like.
True story.
Right? They get pressure with their front four, and the guys in the back end are able to make plays. I mean, they create a bunch of turnovers. They're everywhere where they need to be. The corners don't have to cover as long because they get so much pressure. They're on pace right now to break the 85 Bears record for sacks in a season. Yep. I think they're at 35 or 36 after yesterday. Yeah. So they already are at that. And I think the Raiders are at 10, 12? So I don't know the exact number, but it's not even close. It's night and day. And that's exactly when Patrick Graham thinks of his defense and gets home with all the guys up front, the front four getting pressure, he imagines the Broncos defense. The Raiders just obviously aren't out there operating and executing and don't have the same dogs out there that Denver does.
All right, so the guys and myself both have it 1-1 after the bye week, after their first two games. Then they're going to be at home against the Dallas Cowboys, and this is a Monday nighter, guys. Can the Raiders get it done against a Cowboys team that sometimes plays really well and sometimes doesn't? What do you think, Link?
The Cowboys can't stop anybody.
No.
But they have an offense that's capable of moving the ball. I mean, they've got high impact players that are doing the damn thing offensively. They just can't stop anybody. The only reason that I bring that up is because what sticks out to me right now is the Raiders don't have an offense. So if it goes out, is this one of those 13-10 battles? You know, can the Raiders defense stand up against an offense that we've seen them show out and do things against offenses at time, and then we also seen them, take a big old giant egg and do nothing. But it's my guess is can the Raiders finally move the ball? If they are moving the ball within these first 2 weeks, I think they can beat the Cowboys at home on Monday night, because I think that defense is just that inept. But it's a tall task to ask. And we have to see. So, I mean, I can't put the carriage in front of the horse. I'm optimistic. I'm still bleeding silver and black. So I'm going to go Raiders all the way. But I'm optimistic and practical that what we've seen so far is not going to win very many games.
Right. I think the Cowboys are going to win this game. I mean, I just think so because they have that offense that's just really good, right? And obviously it was neutered on yesterday by Denver, but Denver's defense is also number one in the league. Good. So, so I take that into consideration. But CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, those guys, they even have a run game going. I think Brian Schottenheimer is doing a really good job as their play caller and now head coach. I think that he's very creative. Again, talk about creativity that we've been looking for the Raiders to look creative offensively. I think that they're doing that, and Dak Prescott's playing some pretty good ball. Again, they didn't look very good yesterday, but Denver's defense will do that to you. So I think the Cowboys will most likely come into Allegiant Stadium on that Monday Night Football day and win that game.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of Cowboys fans in that stadium, I feel like. This is a game I think they could win, actually, because the Browns are terrible. Can the Raiders beat the Browns? Now, the Browns do have some pieces on defense.
Got a good defense.
That offense, though, is brutal at times.
Yeah.
So, can the Raiders beat the Browns in Week 12?
I'll say yes, because I don't know who their quarterback's going to be. I think maybe by Week 12 it might be Shador. I know that they have some plan in place where they actually see him at some stage of the game. You're right. Their offense is not very good. They don't really look like they have too many even plans of what they're doing, but they do have a really good defense. So, they'll slow down the Raiders offense attack, but they'll probably have to score a defensive touchdown or something to put some points up on the board. So yeah, I'll say the Raiders are going to win that one.
Cleveland's bad. So short answer is yes, they'll win that game.
Okay. Got you. That was quick. I like that. All right, guys. Then they're in LA, which, as you know, is like a home game for the Raiders. They're playing the Chargers week 13. The Chargers are looking good. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, come on. What do you guys think about
They
this?
don't win often at SoFi. I mean, once upon a time, we used to have games in the Chargers, and San Diego would be like our extra home game. You know what I mean? But it's been a hard drought in SoFi so far. I mean,
I don't think they've won any, right? They haven't won any.
I don't think. I think they're one in one. I don't think.
I don't think they've won one at SoFi yet.
Yeah,
it's
either one or none, but it ain't
exactly.
a lot.
Yeah. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. It's not a lot.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think that they'll win that one either. It just doesn't feel like the Chargers, especially if they start to get healthy and they got Joe Alt back. If they, continue to run the ball and Justin Herbert plays better than what we've seen him play the last couple of weeks, I think that they'll be fine. And even this last game that he played in, you saw him have a good bounce back performance against Minnesota. So I think that they'll probably be fine. Was it Minnesota? No, it wasn't. It was, who did they play last? Yeah, it was Minnesota.
It was Minnesota. Okay, you were right. But
hey, look, I start questioning myself, man. That's not good. But so I think that they'll probably find a way to win that game, against the Raiders as well.
This is a classic example when I talk about coaching creativity, because you look at the Chargers and you know what Harbaugh was all about since he came from Michigan. I want to run the ball. I want to run the ball. I want to run the ball. Then they have a couple of big offensive line injuries. They have to transform their offensive line, but they also transform their offense because they relied a lot more on Justin Herbert to be able to throw the ball. They've got a number of young receivers. They've got Keenan Allen, the old guy that's out there still doing his damn thing. But they've got young receivers, and they've been able to manipulate and move the ball, create points, and be able to generate offense by changing their identity of their offense. That's what I'm talking about, the creativity when it comes to coaching down to players. With that being said, I have a hard time seeing them being able to get this win in SoFi against the Chargers, and that's just being realistic. This is a good football team, and the Raiders aren't there yet.
All right, guys. So, another L against the Chargers. Usually I have them split, but the Chargers just look a lot better than the Raiders this year.
Yeah.
Then they have a tough matchup. December's tough as hell. Then they have a tough matchup at home against the Broncos, week 14. Oof. Do the Raiders split this one too, or do the Broncos win again? Q?
Oh man, I'm normally like you. Like I always kind of split with the Broncos and the Chargers, and I don't think that they're going to just lose every game in the AFC West like they did a year ago. But it feels like the way that we're shaping this up that they're on their way to doing that. So I'm going to say they beat Denver. I cannot see them going 0-6 again in the division. Obviously, They lost to the Chargers and the Chiefs already. I have them losing to the Broncos in that Thursday night game. So, yeah, I'm gonna pick this one, the Raiders to win this one again. I just can't see them going 0-6 in the division again.
Link, I know this is hard for you. You guys are both like just shaking your heads right now.
This is the worst.
Well, first of all, we got to be true to what we do, what we stand
right.
for. Yeah. What we're on, and I've always been about I only tell it like I see it. I don't like the Broncos. Ever since I got hit with a snowball up in Denver and I had to break somebody's jaw back then, but at the same point, the Broncos are a good football team and a good defense. I don't think we could beat them in Denver. I'm going to follow Q. Damn it. I'm going with Q. Yeah, they're going to beat them. We're going to win in the Legion. We're going to get that one. We're going to get that division win. That's right. That's right. They get the one at the crib. They're one for the fans. There we go.
All right. Well, we'll make this a little bit quick, guys. I'm going to give you 4 games, and then you guys just give me the record here.
Yes. No.
The next 4 games, we'll start with you, Link. You're on a roll right now. They're in Philly, then they're in H-Town, and then they're at home to the Giants. How does that 3-game stretch? Okay, who are they beating?
Oh, wait. They're going to beat the Giants.
Okay. Oh, you think they're going to beat the Giants? Okay.
I think they'll beat the Giants. I think they'll beat the Giants because the Giants will be so banged up offensively by the time they see the Raiders. They're going to get that win. Houston is starting to come on strong. They're starting to figure things out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm worried about really good.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm worried about Houston. And you already know what you have in the product of Philadelphia. So, and then we come to the final game with Kansas City. I would love to see them beat the Chiefs. I just don't know how it's happening.
I don't either. It's I look at that final 4 games. I see one win there as well. And I think it's against the Giants. No Cam Scatterboo. I hate that for him. He got banged up and he's out for the season. But he brings a lot of energy and juice to that Giants team, as their quarterback Jackson Dart does as well. But I don't think that'll be enough without Malik Neighbors, without Cam Scatterboo. Some other guys getting banged up. I think the Raiders will get that dub, but I see them going 1-3 down the stretch as well.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys have them winning actually 4 games.
Total? Or 4 games out of the 10?
No, because you guys said that they would beat Jacksonville.
Yeah. The
And,
final 10
right?
games, 4 games.
I also believe that Link said that he believes that the Raiders can beat the Cowboys on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
But Q was like, nah, I don't really see that happening. And then you guys have them. Well, Q, you have them winning against the Browns.
Yep.
I believe.
Yep.
And then you guys believe they'll both beat the Giants. So that's 4 more wins. So that would bring their win total to 6.
6-11. Just to have them in a position to be in no man's land when it comes to the draft.
That's exactly right. We saw this last year. That's exactly what happens.
Exactly.
That's exactly what goes down.
I do have, and I'll use this as a tease. I won't talk about it today's show, but I do have the top 2 targets that I think that the Raiders should have in the draft. I think
are we going to wait on this? Are we going to wait on this?
Yes.
Okay. There's a tease. There's a tease.
I'm a professional. I know how to tease these things. So we'll save it for the next show. But there's 2 guys that I want the Raiders to target, and one is a QB. I'll just throw it out there like that. So I got the reasons why and who it's going to be. Just throwing it out.
We're going to do that on the next show then for sure. I'm having that as a segment so we get cues.
Oh, damn. Now I've got more homework.
Don't worry. I'll take the lead on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no surprise for me. We were talking about wide receivers earlier, and obviously if they can't get Jordan Tyson, because I think he'll go in the top 10, who plays for Arizona State, they might be able to get Denzel Boston from UW later in the draft. So, but they got to go.
We're all full draft mode now. That's not even November.
You turned her on. You know she's already established this in weeks before in the show talking about evaluating college talent.
So I got extra busy during the bye week. My bad.
But I'm excited to see who you want at QB because I actually agree with Link. He talked about it like they need O-linemen.
Yeah,
like 100%, right? You got to go for a tackle. Like they got to get a lot of depth at the O-line position. So, but if the quarterback is there. And as you know, Raider Nation, this is why Q is so good at what he does. You got to tune in next episode so you can get Q's picks for the draft. This is what we're waiting for, Raider Nation, which is unfortunate. But by the way, Raider Nation, if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening, you can always jump on our YouTube page, drop some comments, and give your predictions for the second half of the season. We want to know what you think as well, how many games the Raiders are going to win after the bye week. Remember, this is an interactive show as well. So if you have any comments or questions, you can always drop them in the chat, and we may be able to get to them on the next episode. Coming up on the next segment, Q Linc are actually going to be taking some of your questions and comments. So if you're in the chat right now, drop those questions, drop those comments. We will be reading them on the show. Keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raiders Squad Show. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. If the game gets exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? Remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels, and you'll see in the description below the ways that you can connect with us. If you're in the chat right now, drop some of your questions and comments for Link and Q. They will be answering them. We're going to go right to Twitter, actually. Trey McKinney, who is a good friend of the show, wanted me to ask you guys, can you ask the fellas, how long does it take Pete to have to make a change at quarterback if Geno continues to struggle before he loses the locker room? Q, we'll go with you first.
I think that it's not going to be this week against Jacksonville. I don't expect it would be on a short week against Denver either, right? It just wouldn't make any sense. You want to be able to get, if you do make a move to Kenny Pickett or Aiden O'Connell, whenever Aiden O'Connell decides to return, when he's healthy to come back, I think that you'd want to get him at least a full week of practice. I'm sure that they've had some talks and conversations throughout the course of the bye week about when that plan in place would be. I don't think it would be until at least that Cowboy game, that Monday Night Football game, only because you have that extra time from that Thursday night game against Denver all the way till Monday. So it's like almost another bye week. So I think that would be the time if he struggles the next couple games.
That's a good point, Q. I like it to some degree. I'm going to extend it one more. I'm going to say after the Cleveland game, because if you can't beat Cleveland, you've just shown me that what we have, after the next 4 games and the whole total package of work that we've seen this season, if you can't beat Cleveland, and I think Cleveland's a bad team, even though they have a decent defense, then you have to make a change, because you have to see what you have on your roster before you go out there and start, planning for the draft in the next upcoming season. So I think it's after this next 4-game span that you'll probably make a change.
All right, let's go to Dave S., who says, why bring in a vet? He's talking about Tyler Lockett when you have 2 young wide receivers that need some game time. It's not like Lockett will lead this team to the promised land. Either one of you guys can go first.
Well, you're reaching because you're hoping that bringing in a player who's familiar with your system, and Pete Carroll, what you did in Seattle, might help, transform this locker room. You're trying to create a winner. You're trying to build a team. So you're reaching for players that you've had history with. And I've said I don't mind that. I don't think there's a problem with that in the early part of the season. Right now, this part of the season, I don't know what good it is because he's not a number 1. So, signing him, it's not like you're going to let him just retire as a Raider. You're hoping that he can come in and be productive. But there's only one football, as we've talked about, and there's only one way that you can go. And Geno has struggled. So I don't know what he brings to the table. I'm as puzzled by the move as a lot of people are.
Right. It was a move that I expected a long time ago, and it didn't happen. So then I thought, okay, well, maybe they're not going to make that move. And then they make it now. So he's a complimentary piece at best, as Lincoln pointed out earlier in the show. So I'm not too sure exactly what his role is going to be. To me, it feels like it's the writing on the wall for Jacoby Myers to get traded, but maybe it's not. Maybe they just don't have a lot of faith in Jack Besh and Dante Thornton and think that they're not going to develop as quickly as they wanted them to. So, all right, going to bring in another veteran to go alongside Brock Bowers and Jacoby, who Pete Carroll said on Monday last week that he's expecting to get back. The good thing is that we talked to Pete Carroll probably in a couple hours from now. So we'll obviously ask that question as well. What is his role that he's seeing for Tyler Lockett? And maybe we'll have a little clarity.
All right, let's go over to Walt. He says, I wouldn't mind us trading Jacoby to Seattle for Tariq Woolen or get a 4th somewhere. Q, you've been on this whole Woolen thing, and you think that he'd be a really good fit. Link, you've mentioned it as well. Yeah. Do you think that's a piece that they bring in? Because, Pete Carroll guy kind of makes sense.
I liked Tariq Woolen when he was at UTSA. I thought he was a player then, and I was hoping that the Raiders were going to go make a move and bring him in, and they didn't. Obviously, he's got familiarity with Pete Carroll, and the corners that the Raiders have right now are kind of questionable, right? Yeah. The secondary is kind of questionable, so I could see him being a guy that they bring in, especially a guy that can go get the ball. That's the one thing that Pete Carroll's talked about so much is go get the ball, go get the ball, go get the ball. You haven't seen those guys be ball hawks like that. They just haven't. So you have to have someone that's accustomed to taking the ball away where it's a natural thing for them. That's what Tariq Woolen brings to the table. I still don't want to see Jacoby Myers traded at all. I think it's a bad move. As Lincoln said earlier, this whole situation with Jacoby's been fumbled as far as I'm concerned. But I could definitely see them making some kind of move sooner rather than later before November 4th. And Jacoby could very well easily be involved in that.
Yeah, I think the writing is on the wall. Much to Q's point, he said all the show. I think Jacoby is out, and he's going to be on the trading block. And I'd be surprised if, for me, it's hard to pass up a 4th round pick for a good player because what you can do in the draft these days with that. And I think the draft capital is going to come in big if the Raiders find themselves somewhere in the midline where they've got 6 or 7 wins in the draft, and they're going to have use some draft collateral to trade up to get a valuable player instead of in that sort of that no man's land in the draft where you're at. So it's an intriguing possibility. If they could get a 4th round pick for Jacoby, take it. I just don't know if the teams are willing to give up a 4th round pick for a player like Jacoby because he's still a lot unproven in the sense of what he can do for your team because he hasn't stepped up for the Raiders. So that has to play a lot in general manager's mind when you're talking about dealing for a guy, especially if you need a wide receiver.
Yeah, and I'm just going to read this comment because I think it's really interesting. Geomech says, the San Antonio Spurs and Popovich spent 4 years building a team. Now, new coach, new culture. Carroll needs more time and better committed players. Geno's not the answer. He's too old for a rebuild. But I think the consensus of this comment is more so that Pete Carroll needs time, right?
No doubt.
It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah. No, absolutely true.
Yeah, that's true. I just don't know if Pete Carroll's in line for a rebuild, right? I mean, because again, everything he said since he's arrived with the Raiders is that we're going to win a lot of games. That's all I know. So I don't know how well he'll do a rebuild at this stage of the game, and how long is a real rebuild, going to take. So that's why I was hoping that at the beginning of the season, these guys had a real true idea of what this team was going to be and what they were going to do. is this a rebuild, or is this something where they thought, like he said, that they were going to win a lot of games? Right now, it looks like it's trending to and leaning to being a rebuild.
It definitely is a rebuild because the plan is not going accordingly.
Right.
You brought in Geno Smith like a Band-Aid. You knew you were going to have to draft a quarterback. You just probably didn't want to go after last year's draft or put more emphasis into last year's draft. And the possibility of drafting your franchise quarterback is absolutely essential. If you're going to get away from Aiden O'Connell, if you're going to go away from him, and I still think Aiden can play, and I don't think that he's, I'm not saying that he's a franchise quarterback yet. Don't get me wrong, but Geno's not the answer. Geno was a Band-Aid over the gaping wound. So you're just trying to have a year or so buyout. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked to where you can even be somewhat competitive with what we've seen. So yeah, they are definitely in rebuild mode. To what extent, it's unknown. But right now, we do know the Raiders need a lot of pieces. They need a franchise quarterback. Hell, they need a franchise offensive lineman if I'm going to go out there.
Yeah.
They need a franchise receiver. They need a lot of franchise players. That's rebuild mode through and through.
Yeah, if we're talking about franchise quarterbacks on the next episode, Q is going to give you a list of who he thinks the Raiders should draft. So
Q knows ball. Q knows ball.
I just got one.
All right, so that's going to be like the little ticker that comes up. It's going to say Q knows ball. Q's going to give his pick of who he wants the Raiders to draft. That's on the next episode, Raider Nation. Thanks so much for rocking out with us on this Monday morning. We'll be back on Thursday morning, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. Thanks so much for rocking out with us, and continue to like and support the channel. We do appreciate you, and more Raider content will be coming your way. Thanks so much, Raider Nation.